Our U.S. Attorney has got some serious cases in front of him.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Welcome to the broadcast. Great to have you in. We have a high-powered guest here this evening. Our local United States Attorney, Zach Cunha, has got some serious cases in front of him. When I say serious, when it comes to kids and protecting them and the DCYF situation, that's something of great interest. The bridge situation, I think, people want to know, who's going to pay the price and what's happening there. That's something that we'll get into a little bit later on. I want to talk about the culture of the Department of Justice right now, because it is, I'm guessing, not always easy to get into work. I should mention, for those of you who watch the program on a regular basis, you know that we tape on Thursday afternoons, and Thursday is D-Day. It's the 80th anniversary, and I was on a text chain with my high school buddies, class of '79, and found out today, kind of reminded, I guess, and then wondered about. This is our 45th anniversary, graduating from high school, so I have now completely and accurately dated myself. You can do the math on that. But I texted back to the guy, we graduated on D-Day? I don't know. I don't know what the symbolism of that is, and I'm not exactly sure what the respect level was for DePaul Catholic High School to be graduating on D-Day. But it goes to show you that these days that are so important in our U.S. history sometimes get pushed down a little bit. But we are kind of interval oriented, so that when you get on 10s and 20s of anniversaries, and 80 is certainly a significant one. Thankfully, it all comes roaring back, because we have so very few of those heroes who stormed Normandy and other beaches, in our population. And it reminds us not only of Memorial Day, but on most days of the year, we ought to be thanking them for their service. In the meantime, the top story, not the top, but the first one in the list, and the most recent announcement that came from the U.S. Attorney's Office is this story. Look at this. This is. Nope, that's not it. There you go. It's that one. The postal workers charged in the Rhode Island mail theft ring. So let's introduce our U.S. Attorney, and it's a pleasure and honor to have you. Thanks.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're kidding me with this one. Was the first thing that I thought about when this case came to be. 7 postal workers charged in Rhode Island mail theft ring. In-house. You're alleging, right?
Yep.
They're looking for checks?
Some variation on that, yep.
What's this about?
Well, you're not the only one who has this reaction to this case, and I'm right there with you, because this touches people's lives.
While you're investigating it, were you going, oh my God, I can't believe this?
I think that's everybody's reaction. I mean, you have, for this to be going on at this scale, and to involve not just, every once in a while you read about an individual postal worker who's accused of theft or, stealing something in the course of, walking their route. This is an entirely different order of magnitude. This is an organized group of folks working in a regional sorting facility. I hadn't realized before this that basically the Corliss Street facility is where all of the mail, not just for Rhode Island,
it's a big shop.
Huge swath of Massachusetts is covered by the work that they do. And you had individuals who were on a regular basis targeting, whether it's holiday cards at the holiday season, gift cards at other seasons, or one of the most egregious examples to me was the individual who they seized his backpack at the time he was taken into custody and had over $1 million worth of business checks in there. That's a single haul on a single day. And so it's the scope of this and the breadth of this and the extent to which it touches people's lives is tremendous. I mean, I've had people come up to me in the street and say, hey, I read about the mail story, and I'm glad you're doing that, because this touches people's lives.
Yeah. So always when I get guests of your category in, I ask questions that I can't get answers to. So you'll just say, well, sorry, I can't talk about that part. That'll be part of the case. But how did it come to you?
Well, initially, I can talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Initially, it came to us because we had some individuals out there who didn't get items of mail that they were expecting and reached out to the Inspector General's office, and that's what initially touched off an investigation.
Did he get items or didn't get the check that was supposed to be with the items?
Check or gift card or no. So this isn't a situation where people were ultimately getting an envelope and there was something missing from it. This is a situation where, hey, and I'm making this up as a hypothetical, but I call my grandson because I sent him a card for the holidays and there was a $25 gift card in there. Never got it.
Never got the thank you, so it bubbled up.
Exactly. And so, after a number of those came in and an investigation was started, eventually the case went from there.
Okay. The question that I don't think was ever asked and was not answered in the press conference that you had was, how did they do it? So there's a supervisor involved in this, allegedly,
and
correct?
that's a very important part of this, yes.
Tell me.
Well, so supposedly the supervisor is supposed to be minding the store. And again, I'm not going to talk about much more than we've already made public in our charging documents. But what we have alleged is that you have individuals who are manning these sorting machines as the mail is coming through, and they are looking for particular types of envelopes that they think are going to contain what they want to have. And they are separating those out and putting them to the side, and then they're moving them a little further to the side, and eventually they wind up in a backpack or a bag, and they get smuggled out of the facility. And one of the individuals who's supposed to be part of the quality control to make sure that this isn't happening is, we allege, participating in the ring. That's one of the things that makes it concerning.
Happening over what length of period of time?
An extended period of time. We're talking about over a year.
How did the supervisors not know about this? I mean, is it literally the way the post office central kind of runs, is that they operate on their own island? I mean, my goodness, it seems like a long time to be getting away, allegedly, with this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I want to be careful that there are some things investigatively that I can't go into. The inspection service and the Inspector General do a very good job of oversight, and there are things that are done in terms of video surveillance and monitoring and other steps that have been put in place. But obviously it's concerning. One of the reasons you go after conduct like this is hopefully you deter other people who think they can get away with it from trying something like this in the future.
Is this the limit of the charges here, or can this case grow in terms of the number of people who are going to face criminality here?
Well, I'm never going to comment on where an investigation potentially may go. These are our current charges. You may or may not see more.
All right. It seems to me that, I'm sorry, a supervisor can't pull off this for a length of time. So I'm hearing you pretty clearly that you never know who else could be involved in this. But here's the thing I was saying before the show to you that I think is just kind of weird. When violent crime happens, God forbid, we just kind of shake our head and move on. When something like this happens, one of the questions I think immediately comes to our minds is, how could somebody do that? Because the heinous and violent crime has its own psychology and just awful human nature-ish thing. But this is ongoing pilferage that you're alleging for people who have custody of very important documentation and who are in a position of trust. So talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and I think I said some of that in the course of the press conference. I view this in many ways as a public corruption case, because you are entrusted with the sanctity of making sure that this mail gets where it's supposed to get, and you're betraying that trust, and you're doing it for profit. Now, I got enough on my hands being a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. But when you ask what motivates people,
I don't know. There's probably a
little overlap. But what did Willie Sutton, the bank robber, say? Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Right. I mean, in so many of these schemes, whether it's scams that are perpetrated on the elderly or things like this, people are doing it because that's where the money is. Here's
the hardship, I think, that goes along with postal workers. They're one of the hardest working industries in America today. Those people that are still, get into the mailbox and, no matter what the weather, right, and all of that. Not unlike when law enforcement, has a bad apple, the industry suffers, and it is suffering as we speak and needs a rehab. Postal workers need this like a hole in the head.
You're absolutely right. I'm glad you said that, because there are plenty of honest, hardworking postal workers out there, and frankly, there are plenty of postal workers who put themselves at risk. We've had other cases. We have a case just this week where you have individuals who are engaged in drug trafficking, and they'll kidnap or they'll threaten or they'll try to intimidate a postal worker because they think they can get a hold of a package full of drugs or something valuable. So some of these folks are very much at risk and doing an honest, decent job, and we're there to protect them as well.
All right. Next case, when we come back, we'll discuss this DCYF dilemma. It's a hardship. Stay with us. Yeah, and so you got this one. This one hit people in the gut, I think, when you announced that the DCYF is, I don't know, Mr. U.S. Attorney, give me the word. Falling down on the job, looking the other way. What are you suggesting that DCYF as an institution is doing when there are these dozens of kids, mostly young girls you're talking about, who are suffering from all sorts of challenges in their life, psychological issues, and who are discharged to or who are entered into Butler for some help and seemingly don't come out in any reasonable amount of time? That is what you're suggesting here. And this is a civil litigation that you are potentially entering into with the state to correct what you have said is a horrific problem going on.
That it is.
All right, so negligence, laziness, overwork, understaffed, mismanaged, misdiagnosed, throw the key away in the file. What is it?
They're completely failing these kids. And
you didn't pick from any of those items.
I think when you started out with falling down on the job, I think that's a pretty good estimation of it. And I want to start out by saying we've issued a letter of findings to the state that lays out what our allegations are. The state's come to the table, and we're currently in confidential settlement discussions with them. We're going to see where that goes. So I'm not really going to comment beyond the allegations that we've made in public, but I'll tell you this. It's incredibly upsetting. You have these kids who are in crisis. There's legitimate reasons why these kids need psychiatric care and support. That's why they're being sent to Bradley. And, but the point of that care is that they're supposed to be there briefly till they get stabilized. And after that, they're supposed to be moved to a setting that's the least confining, least custodial setting that'll meet their needs. And there are plenty of situations, whether it's foster care or therapy in the community or any number of other kinds of care that are available out there, and the DCYF knows how to provide. And what we're alleging is they've failed to do that, and instead they've just basically left those kids there. They've warehoused those kids there. And I mean, it's just such a world of difference.
Warehouse them, no, let's go to the bigger picture here first. I'm sure the governor is, I'm guessing the governor's responsive.
Again, I'm not going to comment on confidential settlement discussions, but they've engaged.
Because it's a potential litigation.
Yep.
Well, I know that he's horrified to hear this kind of stuff. This is systemic. This is not new, correct?
Correct.
The things that have caused what you have found here over the years have been in place for a long time. Yes?
I think that's fair to say.
The culture, is it a culture or is it a workflow management thing? In other words, do you have people in DCYF that are going, thank God you're suing us because it's going to help us correct a problem that we know that we have been falling down on the job on? Or is it a culture inside DCYF that needs to be changed because they really didn't give a flying hoot after blah, blah, blah? Which is it?
I think like a lot of things, it's complicated. There are multiple factors. We have definitely seen in the course of our investigation, I'm not talking about the ongoing discussions, but in the course of our investigation, we definitely saw acknowledgement by DCYF that, yes, this is a problem, and yes, we want to address it and deal with it. And I'm very hopeful that this will be the impetus for them doing that. I mean, part of the problem is it's complicated to do this. It's much more complicated to set up this structure in the community and fund that structure and make sure that you have foster families that are qualified and capable of providing this care than it is to just leave someone where they are.
Foster work is not easy.
No, it's not.
Most people are in it for the right reasons. Some are in it for the wrong reasons. Is the marketplace sufficient to cure this?
Well, what I can say about
the potential foster parents out there who want to do good work?
Well, what I can say about that is in the course of our investigation, we found that DCYF used to have more capacity in that space, and they reduced the funding to it. And not surprisingly, as a result, the capacity dropped.
Reduce the funding meaning recruiting?
Meaning reimbursement and availability.
Meaning it's not as financially advantageous to be a foster parent any longer?
I wouldn't put it that way. It's, foster parents, particularly foster parents who are providing therapeutic care to kids who have some significant challenges, there are expenses and costs that go with that. And, people do this out of the best of motives, but they also have to survive and provide for those kids. And the funding is there to do that, or it should be there to do that. It's been there to do that.
So
in the past.
incentives are missing.
Yep.
You're saying in
I think
terms
that's a fair statement.
Because taking on these kinds of challenges, I mean, most adults love kids, but I haven't signed up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have to be very careful, I think, in this public conversation and be intellectually honest. I haven't signed up as a foster parent, so those who do are special people.
100%.
And if you can't find enough special people and you don't know where to put some little one, well, what do you do?
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because I cite that as an example. We talk about that as an example because it is part of the pie of how this care needs to be provided, but it's not the whole of it. Therapy in the community, there are other types of care and services that are far less restrictive than keeping somebody in a locked ward that need to be in place.
Okay, so a better system.
Yeah.
Why is Bradley off the hook?
Well,
Keeping kids there for the length of time that they did. You felt like they were, I'm guessing common sense dictates to me that they complained.
Well, I think we've actually made clear in our letter of findings that one of the problems here is Bradley is saying, hey, these kids are ready for discharge. We think that we've done what we need to do with respect to them, and now it's time for them to
And
move
weeks
on.
and months have gone by.
Right. But Bradley,
sometimes a year.
These are kids, not adults. If it were you or I, and we were in psychiatric care and the doctor concluded we didn't need that anymore, they'd say thank you very much and let you out the front door. You can't do that with kids. So if these kids are in DCYF's care, it's DCYF's obligation.
You think you're going to get a deal soon?
I hope so. I hope so.
And then how are you going to track the success of it?
Well, I'm not going to comment because the terms of any settlement that we may or may not reach with any individual is going to depend on its terms. All I can tell you is that we're committed to addressing this problem in an enforceable way.
As a professional, do you enjoy the civil or the criminal more?
I enjoy all of the aspects of my job, and frankly, it's whatever is going to solve the problem or the issue, whether it's a public safety issue, a civil rights issue.
Speaking of public safety, one more headline. Can we throw that up, Eric? The bridge. Look, the state's got lawyers. They're doing forensic work. The forensic report is somewhat delayed because I think the lawyers are saying, let me do that on the state side. There's that federal investigation part. How involved is your office in taking a look at what's gone on with the bridge?
Well, take a step back for a minute. I mean, anytime you're talking about a federal investigation, I'm not going to comment on something that's ongoing. I think in this particular instance, there have been folks who have publicly made statements that they've received federal process. There have been, I think, images out there of false claims, investigative demands, and I'm not going to deny that those are authentic. But what I'll do is I'll tell you more generally what it is that we look at in a case like that. And it's a question in the False Claims Act arena of, has the government paid for something that it didn't get, or has someone made false misrepresentations to get federal money paid to them? So, a good example is a case we did a few years back on the new highway bridge on 195, where the railing was installed in a way where it wasn't going to keep cars from going off the side, potentially. And in that case, the question was, did the federal government get billed for something that we didn't actually receive? So in any kind of investigation like this, that's what we're looking at, and it's a relatively narrow issue. We're not looking at an overall survey of engineering. We're not looking at how something was administered. We're looking at that one particular discrete issue.
We're looking at state agencies. We're looking at the state administrations from at least Raimondo to McKee. Is there a federal administrative liability that's possible here as well? In other words, the federal partners that we have in these bridges fell down on the job?
Well, I mean, first of all,
if they did it all,
within the scope of what we investigate, we look at everything, and we work closely with federal partners. The way federal highway construction generally works is that the Federal Highway Administration provides funding and some expertise, and most of this actually gets implemented and built and overseen on the state basis.
All right, so TBD on that. When we come back, I just want to talk a little bit about the culture of the Department of Justice right now. Stay with us. So welcome back. I wish I had 2 hours, not 2.5 minutes to talk to you about this, but the Attorney General, I think, stepped up this week and kind of fought for his Department of Justice a little bit.
That he did.
What's it like? Do you feel isolated from what has been the assault on institution and the legal system in this climate? Do you operate somewhat at, watching it from afar, or do you feel it every day?
I mean, I think what we feel every day, certainly what I feel every day, I've been with the department for going on 20 years.
You're a career guy.
I'm a career guy. And I think what I share with a lot of the folks who serve for their careers with the department is a commitment to what we do, which is following the facts and following the law, not being beholden to factional purposes, but being beholden to getting it right. That's what we do every day. And so you kind of tune out some of the noise in the background. Does it bother you? Does it concern you when people don't value some of the core bedrock things that you talked about D-Day at the head of this segment, some of the values that are precious and it's central to what this country is? If people question that, that's obviously concerning, but we do our job.
But our civics understanding has gotten so low. In that constitutional good faith space between the executive branch, the White House presidency, and the Department of Justice, from the Attorney General, the appointment is the politics. After that, it's supposed to be
exactly right.
Right. People don't even understand that space. Donald Trump is suggesting that Joe Biden is making all these prosecutions, even in a state case in New York, where we know that's incongruent. And he's feigning that when he gets in, by the way, his Department of Justice will take action. It's got to, inside, you guys have got to be just like puking over the whole notion that this thing has been explained in such an inaccurate and corrupted fashion. I got 20, 30 seconds for the answer to that notion, right?
I'm not going to comment on politics. What I'll tell you is that for 20 years, I and the people I work with do the job straight down the middle on the facts and the law.
But are you worried in the future that the job is going to be so blasphemed, sorry to borrow the term, that it will cripple you or hurt you in the effort?
I think the only way you can do this job is doing it right and not worrying about the noise. That's the way I approach my job every single day.
So you're day to day?
We are day to day, doing the people's work.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Be more high profile, will you? These cases are interesting, and you're good at it, so appreciate the time.
I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Final word when we come back to this. All right, since Donald Trump did get convicted, we haven't had a chance to do any analysis on that from a political point of view. We will next week. And don't forget, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRI. Have a great weekend. See you.